Hello, this is Mr. Huff, and I want to go over creating flowcharts with you. This is a PowerPoint you can download from the curriculum. This is in machine control. So, the first part we need to look at is what a flowchart is. It's basically a representation of an algorithm or a process. It's basically a drawing of how a program is going to function. So you can see the example here. We have a beginning, then we do something, we check the dog's bowl, we ask a question. Is it empty? And if it's empty, then it does one thing, and if it's not empty, it does something else. So if it asks, is it empty? And if the answer is yes, you pour food into the bowl, and then you stop. And if it is not empty, then you just go to the end. So that is basically a really simple program. And why? These are some of the shapes you will be using for these activities. So you can use we'll talk about the different shapes. I think it talks about all of them except for display, and this is an output to a user. So this would be like on your phone. It's your phone screen or the vibrate. It could also be like your computer screen, something like that. So let's talk about the individual parts. All right, this rounded off rectangle, this is an indicator for the beginning or the end. So your program has to have one of these at each end so we know where it starts and where it finishes. The rectangle is a process, and this would be like a verb. It's going to do something. So it's going to, for instance, it could turn something off, turn something on, it could cause some motion, it could perform a calculation, something like that. So it's where you have an input that's being changed somehow. It's like a verb. Input and output, this is a parallelogram, so it's kind of slanted. This indicates that something manual is needed. It's asking for some sort of input from the user, or it puts out some information. It has some output that would go out to, say, a printer or something like that. So you might ask it to type in a weight or enter a balance number or capture a time from an operation. Okay, so you're looking at some sort of value that you're either capturing or sending out. Then you have a decision, and this one will always have arrows going in at least two directions. So it's a rhombus, so it's like a diamond shape, and it can only be yes or no. So you have to ask a specific question that can only be answered with yes or no. And then you'll have an arrow that shows what to do if it's yes, and another arrow that shows what to do if the answer is no. True or false are better terms to use instead of yes or no. Arrows indicate the direction that the program is going. So you need to have arrows pointing in the right directions to show how the data and decisions move through your program. And then they give an example, and I'm going to skip down here a little bit. You can go through and look at this on your own. But I want to get to the slide that has everything and then go over the program. All right, so here we have the entire flowchart. Notice it begins at the beginning with the start. So here's start. And then we have an input. It's going to start with the number 1. And then it's going to say the number. This could be an output on a screen or something like that, but it says the number. So at this point it would say 1. Then it's going to add the number 2 to that value. And then it's going to check to see if it's greater than the number 9. If it's not greater than number 9, at this point it would be 3. So it's not greater than 9, so it says no, and no means it goes back up here to in between the input and saying the number. So it's going to say 3 and add 2 to it, and then it's going to be 5. It's going to say 5 and add 2 to that. It's 7, and then it's going to go up here and say the number 7 and add 2 to that. It's going to be 9, and then it's going to add 2 to that and say that it's 11, and then it's going to say it's greater than 9, and it's going to end. So that's kind of how that program flow works. So that's a pretty good example. Notice in Google you have some tools. This is a screenshot from like Google Slides. This is a really good place to do some flow charting. You can look at all of the little shapes here, and all of these are related to flowcharts. So we're going to keep it simple and just use the ones in the top row. And you can see all of the ones we've already talked about, and that's it. But if you go look at each one of those, it will describe, this is a database and this is a logical step or something like that. So you can see what those actually are in a flowchart. So it actually has some nice tools. And you can use arrows to connect those and show your program flow. All right, so I will be giving you an assignment where you create a program flow. The one that they show is how to pour a glass of milk. I think that's a little boring. Maybe we can step that up a notch.